if y'all ready.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right,
I'm watching.
welcome to UNIST Podcast, Episode 2. I am joined with Tari and Vinegar, just like last time.
And for those of you without video or whatever, this is Tari.
And this is Vinegar.
And I am Hiyari. And today, we're gonna talk about the value of Vorpal.
Yeah, this could be a long one depending on how much we decide to talk about it. But how should we start this?
We can talk about what does Vorpal give you, mechanically, because it opens new mechanics that you can't do unless you have Vorpal, right?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I
Or
guess.
buffs existing mechanics.
Yeah. So I guess to start off, then it makes the most sense to simply explain what Vorpal is for, uh, even if it's probably repeating information everybody should know. Um, so without starting from the very beginning and going, this is a fighting game. Um, mm, Basically, Vorpal is the most unique mechanic to Uni that basically rewards playing well overall. Um, I had a better description in mind, but I'm losing it. Basically, the developer intent was to make Vorpal something that the player was rewarded for, would get as a reward for outguessing their opponent or making correct reads in offense, defense, and neutral.
Like just playing well, right? To put it simply.
And that's like properly teching throws, reading when certain attacks are coming, or when you're on the opposite hand, properly successfully throwing your opponent, or reading when they are reading their read essentially, which is how the whole concept of green shielding works. But that's a topic for another day.
As an aside, at lower levels, it's pretty easy to think about it just as something that helps balance the flow of the game between defense and offense.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of touched on that in the previous podcast that for newcomers, uh, a lot of the game flow of Uni can come off as really oppressive because people can't find the gaps and pressure thanks to how freeform a lot of it is. Um, but Vorpal helps to mitigate some of that because once one side or the other has it, certain things become a lot less powerful, like a lot of the concept of stagger for a lot of characters.
Yeah, and it's a very stagger-centered game in pressure. And if you are defending against that while having Vorpal, just the existence of Vorpal makes staggering kind of risky.
One of the one of the things that happens in this game quite often because of just how valuable Vorpal is you'll see players opt to not finish combos, not actually get good Oki setups, or do very strange sort of things in any other game with the sole purpose of trying to win the Vorpal cycle. And it's not even necessarily so that they have it. A lot of the time, it's so the opponent doesn't have it.
Yeah, that's you don't think about that at first. Some people, there was someone in the Europe chat uh, the other day who talked about, I don't want to focus on Vorpal because I don't even have a Vorpal trait. I'm Mika player. And everyone in the chat was like mentioning all of the stuff that Vorpal gives you, but more importantly, not allowing your opponent to have Vorpal was also mentioned.
So to build on that a little bit, I'm going to say this just once, because I don't want to get off topic into rambling on it. Um, I feel like a lot of people, especially at the lower level, really pick on the whole Mika not having a Vorpal trait thing as like low-hanging fruit for why the character is considered weak. And that's just not all that important. When it comes down to it, we'll go into this later on, I'm sure, but I feel that when it comes to Vorpal traits, there are probably 4, maybe 5 characters in the whole cast whose Vorpal trait changes the flow of gameplay enough that it's really important for them to have. For a lot of other characters, they'll get Vorpal, and you go, Hyde gets Vorpal, and it's, oh, your Vorpal trait, your force function gets like 2 frames faster and is slightly safer on block. And that doesn't suddenly change Hyde's entire game plan. It's more like a nice bonus. Not many characters need or are gunning for their Vorpal trait that much.
Who would you say gun for it?
Seth.
Yes.
Seth.
Agreed.
Seth for one. I think I had like 3 or 4 characters in mind. The 3 who immediately come to mind for me are Seth, Eltnum, and Gordeau.
Entertainingly, Seth is also one of the characters who has the easiest time actually stripping VO.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, stripping Vorpal with VO.
At the end of a combo, right?
Yeah, just all of his combos. Oh, I have 100 mirror, let's do it.
Hilda does it too, actually.
Yeah, Hilda's quite good at it.
Yeah, stripping Vorpal. I mean, we can go on that for uses of it on offense. I think what we might want to do actually is start off with the uses of Vorpal in neutral, if we're gonna talk about value of Vorpal.
Well,
okay.
If we're talking purely in neutral, not even talking about using it to go on offense out of neutral or anything, in absolute neutral, there is actually not that much it does.
And this actually ties in really well to, I mean, what I was saying for characters who are affected strongly by it. Yeah, I think it makes the most sense to start with neutral because, of course, neutral is usually how most fighting games start, especially, round 1 in this game in particular when neither side has it. Getting that very first Vorpal cycle. So there are certain characters who do benefit a lot from it, and yeah, Seth is one of the biggest ones. To explain Seth's Vorpal trait, or the most important part of his Vorpal trait, is that his fastball kick, when he teleports behind you, nothing personal, and kicks you into the air, in Vorpal, the range on that move is pretty much, doubled?
I think it's more than doubled. It's insane.
It goes very far. It goes more than half screen if he decides to do it. Like, the tracking on it improves. And without Vorpal, it's much shorter, to the point where he can't really use it as a footsie tool.
It's short enough without Vorpal that some characters can run out of his blink and outrange.
I think I lost you, but I think I know what you were going to say. It was like he can blink and outrange the tracking on it before he's allowed to do it.
You can run away from it.
So he's one of the big ones. I think Gordeau is another one of the big ones because Gordeau's Vorpal trait increases the range on its force function to I would say almost or maybe the same length as Seth's tracking on fastball kick in Vorpal.
Yeah, Gordeau, it definitely changes the flow of neutral. When I
think the startup is...
What?
I'm sorry, I was just saying the startup on Gordeau's force function is, I think, more important than the range itself.
It lowers the startup by a few frames as well. I think it's like 3 frames. It goes from 21 to 18 or something like that.
I think the startup is kind of ambiguous too. So it looks faster than it actually is.
Oh, another of the characters I think Vorpal actually impacts pretty strongly, though people don't realize, is Chaos.
Yeah. in
Um,
neutral, or on pressure, because his pressure becomes like different.
yeah.
My expertise
Nobody
on
knows.
chaos isn't very good, but
I was going to say nobody knows what Chaos is doing, so this is harder to immediately parse. But Chaos's Vorpal trait, as I recall, it gives Azidahaka, the lizard, the dog, more invul on certain moves. In particular, I think it's his Dragon Punch motion where the lizard tail whips you. Without Vorpal, I want to say that you can hit that move out, like you can hit the lizard during startup, I believe, and in Vorpal you can't, and it's essentially an actual DP that it can combo from.
is it?
I believe that's the case.
I
Since
thought
we're on
I
this,
thought his Vorpal trait was that Ozzy can whiff cancel its stuff.
I'm gonna just pull up the doc that's available for it. We might as well.
Oh my god, feels bad.
Personally, I find that while Chaos's Vorpal trait is like annoying, I'm actually more annoyed by him having Vorpal and being able to choose wherever he wants to reset his lizard pressure.
So officially looking at, well, unofficially, officially looking at the doc that someone had written up for it. Uh, if you kill Ozzy, it no longer takes any health from Chaos, because if you do hit the lizard, it usually hurts Chaos a tiny bit. Ozzy becomes fully invulnerable during the tail whips, and all of his specials can be cancelled on whiff. Yeah.
Yeah, the whiff cancel thing. Oh
I
god.
did remember the HP, him not losing HP for it, but that's really minor compared to the other two, because it's not like you can kill the lizard and then kill Chaos by proxy.
That's 3 characters?
Those are well, there's also Eltnum, but hers I think is more important for offense than neutral.
Waldstein.
The rock wall bouncing?
Well, no, he wants CS just so he can do things.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, he's not so much for the rock throw, but he just wants to use chain shift, basically.
I think the only other one who immediately comes to mind for big Vorpal benefits in neutral would be, actually, I wouldn't even say hers is for neutral, more just useful for combos, is Hilda, since in Vorpal she gets the meter refund.
Yeah, that was really good for her, actually.
Yeah, that's really good. Just, I guess we'll get to it for offense, unless we're already done with neutral. But I think so. There are those handful of characters who really get the benefit of it in neutral, um, but mostly I feel like the benefit of earning Vorpal for neutral is kind of, the benefit is usually implied during the match rather than always being something significant. So to use Gordo, I suppose as the easy example, by him earning Vorpal during a cycle, that immediately gives him. I know Troll likes to sometimes call these things like a silver bullet. It's just you get this and it suddenly solves a lot of your problems. Is Gordo being able to do Grim Reaper chain shift?
Right.
So, just so that we're all on the same page here, at this point, we're not really talking about neutral. What Vorpal typically does for characters, in the sense of quote unquote neutral, is it lets you exit neutral fast. You get to choose when it ends most of the time. You're like, hey, I have Vorpal. I don't want to be sitting here doing whatever. Let me just come in and do something. And there.
Yeah,
I think that's a
especially
good point.
characters with a special move that moves them forward fast are usually like they want to use that move and change shift to like end neutral. Like you have Seth, uh, what do you call it? DP motion
Yeah.
Yeah,
into change
like the
shift.
rush.
Yeah. And that's
I mean, even the Vorpal traits that we're talking about, things like fast full kick from Seth, that's basically a way to get out of neutral and get into offense. Gordeau's force function is plus, it's faster, it reaches a little further. Also pretty good for closing range, Grim Reaper CS, all of that stuff.
yeah. Akatsuki got the fireball chain shift.
Fireball, you mean Bitatsu?
All right.
Well, that
got-
too. And yeah, Eltonum has gunshot chain shift, which is very significant.
Like your tools in neutral, you have like one shot to like use an oppressive tool. So just having Vorpal and being aware of that increases your chances of like winning neutral heavily. So
Yeah.
that's Vorpal on neutral, unless there's more.
Mm,
I think it's probably easier to talk about Vorpal on offense or defense than it is to talk about it in like a neutral sense, because again, it's typically used to enter offense or supplement defense.
yeah, I think that's fair. So then Vorpal on offense. Similar to neutral, though, I think most of the characters who have a Vorpal trait, um, sometimes the small difference in frames that you'll get from, because that's probably one of the most common things, is simply Vorpal trait involves your force function getting faster. Occasionally, I'm sure that comes into play. Those cases of like, someone just barely isn't able to react and they eat hide force function when they might have needed those 1 or 2 extra frames to like mentally parse it. But similar to neutral again, a lot of the time the benefit of having Vorpal is just kind of the implied threat of being able to do chain shift whatever you want.
Wait, are we still talking offense here?
Yeah, in offense. What I'm to give you some examples. I think you could see this in that same 1st to 10 set that we were talking about earlier today, of Shimazaki versus Hyro.
I missed it.
Well, Hyro at a few points actually did just do like run up B Grim Reaper, no cancel, because he had Vorpal, and Shimazaki respected it simply because he was expecting Reaper chain shift.
Mhm.
And for a lot of characters, you'll have that same sort of thing, since a lot of those aforementioned forward-moving special moves, almost all of them are negative. So usually someone will do that and then go right into chain shift in order to make it extremely plus, or at the very least make it slightly plus. It's very rare that you'll do that and have yourself be negative. But that doesn't mean that people will do that every time. It's just the implied threat of, well, what if they chain shift to, like, maybe I should just not consider pushing a button because the odds are already stacked against me here.
One of it's worth pointing out here that the use of chain shift to make something plus is not why people respect super minus moves on block. It's the late chain shift into punish that people are afraid of.
Simply put, when you have Vorpal on offense, you have so much more freedom to like play with options. And also you get a 10% damage buff when you have someone in a combo, and you also have access to Crosscast Veil off, which is pretty big.
Or just CS mid combo for meter.
Right.
It typically improves everyone's offense just because if you were to look across all of the characters in the cast, you would find a lot of them have at least 1 or 2 attacks in their arsenal that you can't convert without chain shift or are very hard to convert without some sort of a resource. I mean, some have more than others, and then there are some who can pretty much combo off of anything if the circumstances are right. But it's more of the flexibility that he already just mentioned. Trying to think of a good example here, actually. There were
Gordoku
probably
Reaper.
more examples. There is that, although he with 100 meter he can convert that. I know.
Depends,
No,
right?
yeah, it depends. Height,
If it's airborne, you can.
yeah.
Fair enough. I guess Reaper into what EX
T2C.
slide doesn't really matter as much.
Yeah, generally it's kind of bad to go for that. Because it just resets you to neutral again, and it's not worth the damage. I guess.
In this case, maybe we should use, say, Byakuya as an example. The third hit of his Rekka, since normally he can't really do anything off of that without resources, and without chain shift, it's not really that threatening. But with chain shift, that suddenly becomes one of his best combo starters.
What else? It feels like I'm missing something.
I would say we can include Eltnum here and Gunshot. Though she can convert that with 100 meter with the laser, the EX Gunshot. It's not. It simply doesn't really compare to just Gunshot CS, which turns into 4K because it's Eltnum.
Vitista Beedrill, back to the corner.
Or probably her Adriel, right? And of course her Flash Kick. Flash Kick
Well,
CS.
I think DPs in general are not really worth talking about here. If you can convert your DP without CS, I'm a little scared.
Fair enough, I guess.
I think Wagner can do that.
Yes. If she gets the one-hit counter,
Yeah,
she can
yeah.
do that.
Ori is
Someone
pretty
mentioned-
big on chain shift too. Divine Thrust.
For thrust. Someone just mentioned Carmine, but I'd be lying if I said I knew enough about Carmine to say too much confidently, I guess.
Oh, Carmine. No one plays Carmine, so it's kind of
No,
hard.
you just save CS so that you can do the unblockable.
All right, and he also, I think, his HP drain becomes smaller.
It's significantly less now.
Yeah.
It halves in Vorpal. He goes from losing, I believe, 300 HP to 150 every time he uses an HP draining move. Eagle points out assault, jump A, chain shift for those characters who have it.
Oh yeah. How could I forget?
Or assault jump B or whatever for some characters who have that instead.
Yeah, they're a handful, 3-ish or so.
Linne, Akatsuki, and someone else. Mika? Yeah.
Yes, Mika.
So basically, on offense, you have opens up a lot of doors, and there's a lot less to be afraid of if you have Vorpal. You have ways to extend your pressure while in a situation where you don't have chain shift or Vorpal and your opponent is blocking with Vorpal, that how do you say it? It closes those doors. Suddenly you have to be very mindful about your staggers, because if you leave a gap, that means that defender can chain shift in that gap and reversal out. So usually you'll see when someone doesn't have Vorpal, the pressure is gonna be very different compared to when they actually have Vorpal.
Yeah, I guess we can include at some point. Rather, we should include when people are attempting to bait chain shift.
Hmm.
But I guess that would probably be something to touch on, I guess, after we talk about the benefits of it on defense, because without knowing that, explaining it wouldn't make much sense.
Right.
So, chain shift, I mean, Vorpal on defense. So Vorpal on defense and rather than chain shift, since you do have a couple of different options. So, Vorpal on defense ends up being very powerful for I'll say at least 3 reasons. So the first and fairly obvious one, I think, is just the power of chain shift itself. Chain shift freezes the game for a couple of frames, gives you a frame of invul, and gives you pretty close to a full second to just gauge what's happening on screen and then decide what you want to do. So you'll see that come up a lot early on when people are using chain shift on defense to check to see if someone is staggering a button, which if you have a DP, that gives you a free reversal out, or a pretty strong chance of reversaling out. You can tell if someone's jumping in, so you can choose your anti-air of choice. You can tell if they're going for a throw, which you can blow up really hard in this game with pretty much any character. And even if it's baited, you aren't really in that much danger. It just means that you aren't able to capitalize on it, but you're still safe.
Right.
Outside of that, you'll see some characters do this a lot more than others, but just having I caught that Discord notification too, but
Sorry.
well, that's why I have headphones in. You won't see every character do this as much, but I feel like more people should be using guard thrust, since it is there are a lot of benefits to being able to do that in being able to do that compared to when you don't have Vorpal. So with Vorpal, if you decide to guard thrust, which is like back fireball or Tatsu motion, and D, it's basically a guard cancel.
It changes
There are
the
a lot of
properties of guard thrust in Vorpal.
it gets a bit faster, I believe.
And
And
it's invuln, like
doesn't
properly invuln on hit.
yeah, and it
Like, well,
doesn't
I mean,
take any
always like
meter.
that.
It just takes a Vorpal.
Yeah, instead of taking some of your meter and grid breaking you.
Yes.
I do want to
that's-
say. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, I do want to say on that point. One of the really strong things about using guard thrust while in Vorpal is towards the end of a Vorpal cycle, the hit removes a grid block from the opponent, and you drain all of your grid, and you can typically get something like 3 grid blocks back, like immediately off of that. So it's actually pretty effective if they don't have a huge amount of grid and you think you can win the cycle back. Puts you in neutral, you get a chance to win Vorpal, and you get to have the advantage on the next round.
I was thinking the same thing. Trill and I had talked about this a good while back, and I'm not sure if he would remember saying it, but a good observation he made, probably like the beginning of this year or late last year, was compared to every other defensive option in the game, the fact that you can do guard thrust while you're in block stun means that for a lot of characters it's actually pretty hard to bait while also trying to bait anything else. It's pretty difficult to bait both guard thrust and say veil off, and or say a reversal if your character happens to have one, as well as mash. It's like the timing of each is different enough that you need to have a pretty strong option, and usually you need to have Vorpal to be capable of baiting all of that stuff at the same time.
It is worth pointing out, though, that things like trying to guard thrust in a block string, you can end up just getting stand shield. And that is an unfortunate side effect of the input. It's on purpose, I'm fairly sure, but it is something that can happen if people are doing certain types of stagger pressure and they're looking for something like chain shift that still can bait out a failed guard throw.
Yeah, I agree that it's very likely that that was all intentional too.
Also, I want to point out that some characters benefit from landing that guard thrust a lot more than others. Characters with longer range, Yuzu is pretty happy about landing a guard thrust most of the time. Seth actually is pretty happy about it too. I think he can land the guard thrust, and he typically has enough time to like TK an orb.
And then there's of course Hilda. That puts you pretty much right into what dash BU distance or so.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Wagner, right? You land that and you equip something, have fun.
Yeah, it's not something you see often at all. Even
I think
I don't even use
it's
it that
definitely
much either.
underused.
Yeah, I feel like I want to use it, but I always forget about it. I tend to use Vorpal defensively for chain shift.
From a Mika player's perspective, I find it slightly more useful than people realize, only because nobody expects a Mika to guard thrust you. Everyone expects a Mika to mash.
I mean, it looks like MASH anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah. So that's chain shift and guard thrust at least, and then you don't see this that often, I think, from most characters either. You see this a lot. I've seen this a lot from characters with weaker defense because it's still a good option. This ties into just chain shift and other things because chain shift, and if you see any kind of any sort of move with enough startup that isn't like a 5A, just inputting Veil off as your reversal rather than anything else. Not everybody has a great meterless or metered reversal, so sometimes it ends up being worth it for that, since even though you chain shifted and you are no longer in Vorpal, you can guarantee that your opponent doesn't get it by grid breaking them.
Veil off. That's something I love using for some reason. I don't know. Tauri too, I've
I love
noticed.
Veil off. I think I'm still like one of the only players who does random Veil offs in pressure in neutral or on offense, rather.
Veil off so godlike. I mean, it grid breaks you.
I mean, half the time, like if I get hit by something, like if someone VOs me or something, and I end up full screen, and they start trying to set up, I just VO back full screen. Why not?
Yeah, I think that's pretty unique to your style. Well, not to say that that's a bad thing. I do remember seeing you do that in the past, including times, say, when you're playing, I don't know, Lolly Maiko, and it doesn't seem like the worst decision, since not every character can punish you full screen for it anyway, and you at least immediately remove the grid break and can start fighting for Vorpal again. Oh, there's also the fact that inputting Veil off immediately gives you, is it 1 or 2 grid blocks?
Mhm. On the value of Vorpal, something I like to do with Veil off too is just when I'm grid broken and I'm like full screen away, I like to use Veil off to put myself back and remove the grid break state.
Yeah, it's quite useful for that. It depends on the character you're fighting against, of course, but it is a well considered option.
I think of Vorpal in general as like my lifeline. When my opponent has Vorpal, I will do everything I can to stripe that Vorpal away if I can. 'Cause in the end, the one who has Vorpal will win the round like 90% of the time. That's how I see it.
Unless, and this is unfortunately fairly common with a lot of players, they try to wake up CS and they miss the input and they get hit 4 times.
When you see the startup of the concentration.
Yeah, they just do tech concentrate.
I am familiar with that. Also attempting to chain shift, but realizing that you lost the cycle just as you were inputting.
Oh, that's awareness. Your awareness being bad, Vinegar.
Probably. I definitely lose track of which side of the cycle I'm on if I keep on playing. Although I'm going to blame that on net play since, you know, I'll blame that on net play because you randomly will be player 1 or 2, and if you're playing offline, you at least know.
Mhm. Also, characters that use force function in their combos, depending on the grid cycle, they will avoid going for the force function, right, Vinegar?
Of course.
Yes, but I mean, I think I'm probably the one doing the most talking in this podcast anyway. But this is an interesting topic to me, so bear with me, I guess. I've I don't know if this is a hot take or a cold take or just a me take, but I do feel grid usage by using your force function in combos. I mean, obviously it affects the grid war, and you can in fact lose a cycle by not paying attention and having poor awareness. But I do think it's slightly less of a big deal than people like to make it out to be. This has been a
Really?
long running, yes, mostly because this has been a long running sentiment ever since UNIL, where people used to say that you should really never use non-assist force function. I mean, for the most part, people would say, yeah, don't bother using this because you're losing the grid and you'll lose the cycle and then you'll die. And not to say that there's no truth to that, but then you would see, really at the time, Hishigata was the only Nanase player who was playing well,
What?
at least in the
Didn't like
public eye.
Shacho?
What? Ice can.
In the public eye.
Oh,
Come on, Shacho was in the public eye.
Okay, I'll give it to Shacho because he was what, number 2? I think he
I
still
think
is.
so,
wait, in
Um,
UNIL?
yeah.
Really?
yes.
Yeah, he was really high ranked with Nanase.
Oh,
I think he's still in top 10 in arcade right now too.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I've only seen him play Nanase in UNIST, never in UNIL. I only saw Waldstein and Linne. That's funny.
so so what I'm basically trying to say here is, I think obviously you can lose the cycle, but at the same time, uh, anyone who happens to be playing at the same time that they hear this podcast, you might as well go into training mode at some point and just take note that if you like the grid war is at its most focused when either side is at less than 3 blocks. If you ever build up to a lot of grid blocks and you have like 6 or 7, or somebody's not trying to patrol your shield and you manage to take like pretty much all of them, if anything happens to start to sway that war, you lose grid blocks like crazy until you go back to down to 1, 2, or 3. Even just concentrating for, you know, 20, 30 frames or something, you'll drain almost all of that back down.
Also
And
worth pointing out here, one of the things that people don't really realize a lot of the times is if you have Vorpal and you're on offense and the opponent is just down backing and they aren't shielding, you're still losing Vorpal. You're still losing grid.
Yes.
So you of course want to pay attention to the cycle, but uh, on top of that, uh, though it's not a bad idea to get that grid block lead if you're behind and you're trying to earn Vorpal for the next cycle, it doesn't matter that much until the cycle is close to completing. You can be at 7 or 8 blocks or something way ahead early in the cycle, before the timer is even past the first quarter. But that doesn't matter. Like you won't see the results of that hard work until the cycle completes. So it's not that big of a deal to start to play freely until you at least are halfway through or 3/4 of the way through the cycle, and then start to concentrate on it. As long as you aren't just throwing it away.
I think we mentioned this last time, but if you watch a match and you're wondering why people make certain like decisions, oh, it's like, oh man, why are they mashing there? They got hit like every time. take a look at the Vorpal cycle, because a lot of the times you'll see it somewhere between the 75 and 90% completion on that cycle, and that they're making a play to try to win Vorpal.
Yes.
Or because they think the opponent's going to look at the cycle or chain shift or something, and they're just like, here's my chance.
Yeah, that's the part of the grid war that's so much fun. Like
And then you had
an
oh,
example
sorry.
is versus Squish. Like we would always like assault. We would like it happened in tackle. We would like assault at the same time because assault gives you grid. And something that Squish also does is like he will empty assault like 3 times in a row just to get the grid. It's kind of funny how the decision making goes when the cycle is close to end.
Quiet reminder that empty assault has worse landing recovery than whiffing a button.
Yeah.
You said less recovery?
Four
It has
frame,
worse
right?
recovery. It's 4 frames on
yeah.
empty assault versus 2 frames on assault plus a button.
Ah, right. Yeah, all I was going to say was for those people choosing to make a play, also character dependent. There's a good chance that they're attempting to make a play just because they know if I land a hit, even if I lose the cycle, I might be able to combo into Veil off to strip the Vorpal they're about to earn and things like that. That was definitely something I saw a lot when playing against Kure.
It's quite easy for you, though.
Yeah, she can do almost any combo into EIA Ender and then just Veil off at the end.
It's not any combo, but her standard BMBs tend to work into it. So as long as she gets the hit in the right place, it'll happen. I will say as well that when looking at whether to use force function in combos, aside from how far into the cycle you are, even if you're at the end of a cycle, using force function is fine if you can take the hit to your Vorpal and still win. Or as we just mentioned, if you can strip the opponent's Vorpal immediately afterward. Like there's a lot of reasons that you don't necessarily care if you have Vorpal, but you just want them not to have it.
So basically, this does cover the 3 basic parts of a game flow: neutral, offense, defense. And in each of these cases, I think we've given at least a couple reasons why you wouldn't want your opponent to have Vorpal. Some characters actually become really oppressive in neutral. Almost every character can become really oppressive in offense, and it becomes really hard to pressure someone who knows how to properly use all of the benefits Vorpal gives you when they are on defense.
I didn't hear what you said. You got cut off for me.
Oh, well, I'm going to guess that means I got cut off for the podcast since you're recording. So, at what point did I lose it?
Somewhere at the end.
Okay, well, all 3 we covered: offense, neutral, defense, and some of the basic reasons why you want to prevent your opponent from having Vorpal. It makes neutral harder. It makes defending against someone harder, and it makes pressuring someone much harder.
Right. Vorpal is your lifeline. Do you think so? Do you agree? Please agree with me.
Vorpal is a hook shot.
A hook shot.
You can save yourself from dying with it, or you can grab people and kill them.
Fair enough. Honestly,
Indiana whip.
Yeah, I'm thinking just to a lot of scenarios that I've encountered where the opponent having Vorpal leaves me just feeling really lost. I do actually think Akatsuki is one of the hardest characters for, at least for an infighter like Mika, to do anything to. If he, for example, if I land a hit but he earned Vorpal afterwards.
One of the really fun things to do is if you see a match and one of the players is really far behind and they run it, take a look at whether they have Vorpal the entire time, because there's a very good chance they will on Vorpal cycle like 3 times in a row.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's your lifeline. As long as you have it, you can win. Like if you're trying to run back, it's so scary when you're like at the pixel HP, but you don't have Vorpal, but you do get your turn. And just choosing to meet this person with so much health
Yeah.
is really scary.
But then
And
you get Vorpal, you're just like, I have nothing to fear.
yeah, and that's something that experienced players they take advantage of. They know that they can take another hit and they'll probably do something. Like they will like wake up with a button because the other guy is too scared from like wake up, change shift, DP into death. And
So
that's yeah.
one of the things that we didn't actually mention yet was when you're in Vorpal, you have better meter gain. So being in Vorpal, having a pixel of health, landing a hit, doing a combo, probably getting over 100 meter, and then going into CVO and doing another like 1.6k damage is really insane, and it's really what facilitates that type of comeback.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about comebacks that include Vorpal, though, the Vorpal damage bonus does stack with Veil Off damage bonus, which turns things around for most characters in less than in 1 or 2 combo conversions. 30% damage bonus is a big deal for pretty much any character, and off the top of my head, I can see that turning into things like that phone on touch of death essentially on Seth that people were talking about a few weeks ago.
I think every character, given that they have like less than 30% health, they have Vorpal, and they have maybe like 100 meter, can kill anyone else in 3 combos at most. I think maybe Wold could survive the 3rd combo. I don't know, but in general, those 3 combos are going to do something like 10 or 11k damage minimum.
You pretty much any normal conversion will probably be at least 3k, and then a practical CVO combo at low health can be 5k or so.
Mhm.
Yeah, and highest health is Waldstein at what 11 point something. He's at 11,700 or something like that. It's like 11,400 probably. Yeah, when you add in the numbers, it pretty much means even if he was at full health, that's 3 touches.
That's why it's so scary to let people have Vorpal.
Yes, it's your lifeline. Keep it always. Try to prevent your opponent from having that.
I feel bad that every time you say lifeline, I think of the stupid television ads here in the US.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
There are a lot of stupid products that start with life, like LifeLock.
Life
What
alert.
else is there? Yeah, there you go, Life Alert.
You've probably seen life alert ads in
Help!
some way.
I've fallen and I can't get up. TM.
Yeah.
How do you trademark that?
Did they actually trademark that? Well, that's off
It was
topic.
TM'd on their commercials. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so on the value of Vorpal, what else can we really talk about on this? We talked a little bit last time about uh, reliable ways to, well, not reliable ways, but like consistent things that you could shield for the purpose of earning Vorpal or reversing momentum. So I'm wondering if either of you two have anything more to say on that. How would you suggest that people focus on earning Vorpal?
Learn to shield multi-hit moves.
Projectiles are almost always safe to shield. That's one of the bigger ones for me.
Yeah, definitely shield projectiles if you can see the opponent isn't close enough to like grab you. Shield multi-hit moves. There are a bunch of multi-hit moves in the game, and it is definitely worth learning how to shield them.
There are some
learn-
exceptions, though.
Yeah, learn shield inputs. Things like 1 AD are very useful at certain spacings against certain characters because it prevents you from green shielding, which loses you Vorpal if it doesn't actually block anything. I think those are probably the main ones.
Yes.
Break throws.
Breakthrows, but I mean that we could easily do a podcast topic on just throws. Maybe that's something to do sometime down the line. This is a kind of generalized way of saying it, but I'm going to sum it up something Trill said again, because I don't know. I guess Trill is always here in spirit. I recall him saying at one point to someone when they were looking for advice was be active and neutral. What he meant by that was there will be times I see this a lot still when watching a lot of like beginner players where people are not really sure what to be doing in neutral, so they'll stand there or they'll just dedicate themselves to going in or getting away and like no in between, so to speak. The things that you gain grid for, besides the cases where you actually just outplay your opponent and you say assault and hit them, or you break a throw, or you successfully throw and so on, you will get grid for moving forward, shielding things from a distance, and like such as the projectiles that you mentioned, or concentrating. And there are a lot of instances in neutral, depending on matchup, where you can do a lot of these things at relatively low risk, especially thanks to stuff like dash blocking, since you can. There isn't any mechanic like what's it called in Guilty Gear where you have to faultless break? Yeah. Or barrier, essentially, barrier break in BlazBlue running forward and canceling the barrier. Since you have no actual recovery on your dash, you can attempt to move forward or inch forward, and you'll gain a little bit of grid just for the forward movement.
I will mention here that it is a good idea to do things like concentrate in neutral. If you have no idea what you're doing, concentration is usually a pretty safe option, but it is worth pointing that certain characters can reach very far distances, and that concentration has startup, and it can only be directly canceled into shield or specials.
I didn't know that.
You can cancel the startup of concentrate directly into a special. I do not remember if you can cancel the startup directly into shield, but what ends up happening is people hold the D and then they roll to block and they get a shield and then they die.
Yeah, yep, that happens a lot. Especially when someone, for example, runs forward at someone concentrating and throws. They'll attempt to break the throw and they'll get, something like that.
How much grid blocks do you get from breaking a throw?
2, isn't it?
I want to say it's 2. I'm trying to remember if you gain 2 or if they lose 2.
Right.
There's definitely an exchange. I know that both sides.
If you grab someone, you get 2. I think. If you successfully land the grab, and if you successfully tech, I think they lose 2.
Oh, really? Damn, I don't remember. Holy crap.
I actually don't remember either. It is an exchange. I believe it is 2 cumulatively, but exactly which way it goes, I don't remember. I can pull up my old EL doc. Let's find out.
Funny thing with throws and throw breaking is when someone is at a disadvantage, a thing that they can do is go for you make your opponent throw you. So while you're on offense, you're doing something that enables them to throw you, and you have while you have that in mind, it's so easy for you to throw tech, and that way you get grid while they lose grid. It's kind of advanced, but it's an
It's
option.
really, it's actually really worth actually mentioning this because again, if you watch characters like Carmine, especially that type of character, if you see them run up to someone, crouch in their face for a while, and then do their anti-air as the start of their block string, they're starting with a throw OS.
Yes,
Mm,
I actually remember the 2 GB do that a lot.
It's yeah, I mean Notes does it a lot too. It's really good on Carmine because his 3B is so good.
Spinach does the same thing.
Oh, I've seen it. He uses it a lot on defense. I know that.
That too. Spinach. I'm pretty sure he confessed directly at CEO Otaku that if anyone gets into his face, he just 3BOSs almost immediately because it was what got him so far. It got him into what, top 16? He said he just relied almost entirely on just 3BOS, and people didn't know what Carmine was doing enough.
Okay, if a player breaks a throw, there are two benefits. The player breaking the throw gains 2 blocks of grid. The opponent loses 2 blocks of.
Hmm.
So it's a 4 block exchange,
And then there's of course the whole frame advantage disadvantage,
of course.
but that doesn't tie in that much to Vorpal, I guess.
Mhm. But it's worth mentioning uh, that you're +8 if you break a throw.
And there's of course a unique guessing game that comes from that.
Yeah, there's also actually if if I have Vorpal and something I like to do is go for a very obvious throw and they break it. But since I have Vorpal, doesn't necessarily like what happens there is kind of there's a mind game, right? Because I can use
Mm,
chain shift right as I after I tech the throw, and if they press a button, that means I can DP. So if you watch a match and you see someone take a throw, like they're put in the corner, they don't have Vorpal, and they break the throw, they won't try to take their turn back in most cases because they're thinking about the Vorpal. So
It depends on your
suddenly,
character.
yeah, of course, but suddenly a situation where you are -8, thanks to Vorpal, just the existence of Vorpal, you having it, doesn't mean that your turn is over.
mm. If you are willing to use that chain shift right away, if the opponent pushes a button, characters with reversals can simply reversal. If they decide to do anything else, whether they attempt to be cheeky and say go for an overhead, or if they in any way assume that you will respect because both of you know that you're minus, you can potentially exploit that. Something I'm very familiar with. Uh, a general situation is having my throw teched and then doing chain shift immediately. And I would see Japanese players very often. They would dash forward, and they would try to initiate that throw guessing game of dash up, delay throw, or delay assault. But if they attempted to dash up as I was chain shifting, by the time they would get point blank, that frame advantage has disappeared. So it turns back into Mika's turn with a 5 frame button.
There are some minor things that I'm just going to mention because they are applicable to Vorpal, but a particular minor thing that I don't know how many players actually pay attention to, but it is worth remembering. When you're in Vorpal, as mentioned earlier, you do more damage with your hits, you gain more meter. The opponent also gains more meter from every hit they take. And so there are a lot of situations where it is beneficial to end combos with the opponent at something like 99 meter. And when you are in Vorpal, your combos, if you're trying to aim for that, tend to be slightly worse than normal.
Oh, I think also something we forgot is the grid blocks gives you meter when you change shift.
Yeah, that was the only thing back when I mentioned that I was in pure neutral. CS does like one thing. That was what I was talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a neutral chain shift gives you let's see if I remember the numbers here. So in neutral, for every grid block, it gives you 20 meter.
Wait, what? For every grid
In
block?
neutral,
Yep.
Is that so?
yes,
Up to the first 6, of course.
yeah, you can get up to 120 meter for a neutral chain shift. If you are
Oh,
using it as a cancel off of, like, say, a normal or a special, I believe it's what, 12 meter per block.
Yep.
oh, damn! I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I had no idea.
Oh my god, here.
Holy shit! Who knew that?
Me?
I knew it
Vinegar?
for
That's two people on this whole
Everyone in
planet.
NorCal?
No way. Squish, did you know? Hell no. No way.
Well, as Taria was kind of saying, it only has that one use for the most part, so people don't tend to. And meter gain in this game is generally pretty high. I would say in an average game, you're probably going to get 3 or maybe 400 meter, depending on your character. And then you have characters like Hilda who are getting half of it back. So most people, I think, don't bother doing neutral chain shift for its own sake. They might do
Yeah.
it, say, to gauge like a jump in or something.
So I just want to point out, by the way, that you covered 2 of the situations where you're getting different values. There are 2. You get
I knew there was
16
one
meter.
more.
Yeah, you get 16 meter per block if you CS in neutral while the opponent's in hits.
Ah, okay.
And you get 8 meter per block if you CS a special that you whiff.
Oh.
That one I didn't know.
So you squished didn't know.
One...
Told you. You're the
So
only
it's
gods.
one of the interesting things is if you ever see Aurier like do Divine Thrust, EX Divine Thrust, and then she CS, she's actually getting more meter than she would if she CS someone because she's in neutral.
Cool. I learned
It's
something.
super minor, but yeah.
Learned something new.
Also worth pointing out, if you CS and you have more than 6 blocks, you get the extra bounce.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would like to see that be more useful, but at this point, currently in the game, it's kind of, I don't know. It's, if anything, it usually just seems like it's more just cute than anything else. Getting the extra bounce.
It's not just the extra bounce; it also extends hit stun in the combo by like 3 frames.
Okay. Was that perhaps the thing you mentioned way back when? You probably wouldn't remember, I guess, but when you wrote the UNIL doc, I do remember you writing at one point that it was possible to chain shift and then extend hit stun on certain moves, and you didn't fully understand why.
Yeah, I still don't understand exactly what dictates how much hit stun you get, but if you chain shift and you have enough grid blocks, it extends hit stun by some variable amount. It's part of the reason that like the 300 meter combos, a lot of them have really weird connections after the CS, and that's because they're extending hit stun.
Okay. I'd say
Obviously,
the one I was not aware of was getting 8 meter for whiffing a special move and CSing the whiff.
Yeah, I assume it's just because it's the oh crap, I'm gonna die CS.
Or the I did this and I baited Veil off CS.
Yeah, I mean you're if you're doing that, it's definitely worth it. The place you probably see it the most often is on someone's wake up when certain characters do the special and they CS it. That's where you'll see that 8 meter per block sort of thing show up.
So Hyde doing Shadow Scare CS, I guess.
Yeah, or Gordo 228.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's common.
So I also enjoy Gordo doing Reaper on someone's wake up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Reaper on someone's wake up into CS. I don't know if I've seen that actually.
If you time it right, you can CS, and then they'll try to shield the second hit, and you will just CS in their face, and they will just be shielding.
Fair. I actually was trying to think of if Gordo could chain shift on the first hit of Reaper, and I'm pretty sure he can, right? Just in any circumstance.
Only on hit, not on block.
Oh,
He couldn't
And
even CS the first hit in EL, could he?
no, at, not at all.
Yeah, it was a ST change for some reason. I'm not sure if it's actually useful, but it's funny.
It's
So
not
then-
really useful at all. You get less damage for the one hit Reaper chain shift.
but the scenario you're talking about here, Tari, is that essentially if you were to do meaty Reaper so that only the second hit.
It's like
hit
whiffing on
someone's
top of
wake
them
up.
as they get up, yeah.
I see.
But like normally what happens in that situation is they either wake up shield or they wake up and they push a button, and you CS in their face and you kill them. Or you do the Hiyari and you do that, and then you late cancel into EX grab.
That's the best one.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that, I guess.
You don't need Vorpal for that.
No, you don't.
Okay. So to backtrack a tiny bit, so we were talking about we kind of went back towards uses of chain shift, and I feel like we had a topic there and kind of let it go, but I can't think of what it is right now.
Me neither.
Yeah, I can't either.
Well, maybe I'll catch it when when I go back and re-listen to this later. Then.
Yeah, I don't know. If there's anything else, if there's any questions, feel free.
I feel like it had something to do with Vorpal.
So yeah, I guess if there are any questions in stream chat for us that are ideally on this topic. I guess what we were kind of generally talking about was things that you can do to more consistently earn Vorpal during the course of a match. When we were last on that was when I was talking about Trill saying, for example, you just need to be more active and neutral and not, for example, just stand there, whether it's moving forward or shielding or concentrating. You'll see the characters who usually want to keep you out, like Hilda or Yuzu. If you are playing neutral well and fighting for Vorpal well enough, you will find that those characters will stop whatever they're doing at times just in order to concentrate. This goes for Phonon as well. Because just by moving forward and occasionally shielding, whether it's reading something with a shield or even just 1 AD for perfect blue shield, they can't choose to keep you out and earn Vorpal reliably at all. I've said this numerous times now when people have asked what to do about Hilda. This also applies to Yuzu. This also applies to Phonon. These characters are not capable of preventing your ground approach, preventing your air approach, and contesting Vorpal. They basically can't push a button and do all three of these things at once unless you're playing really poorly. They really have to choose one or two of these at any given time, which is how you get in on these characters at the end of the day.
I'm sorry. I got spaced out reading the chat. But yeah, long range normals are they have this double-edged sword that they're very neutral, dominant tools, but in terms of Vorpal, they're kind of lacking because it's safe to shield.
There are certain ways that that sort of thing actually baits shield inputs as well, which is why it's worth learning the 180 input. And as a sort of an aside to that, if you're watching like mid higher level play and you see players suddenly canceling their concentrate and shielding at really far ranges, or changing their decisions, and you don't really understand why, it's worth trying to figure out if the other player can reach them.
Mm.
Because there are a lot of times where you'll see characters, they'll start concentrating or they'll dash forward and they'll concentrate a little bit against, say, Merkava or Wold or something. And then as soon as they see anything happen at the other side of the screen,
They'll immediately 1D.
yeah, one or two, 1 or 4D.
Yeah, this sounds like my most of my play career versus Yuzu is
Yeah, you'll see Yuzu dash forward a lot when someone's concentrating. She just dashes forward and that doesn't do anything.
yep, just looking to put herself back in that space where the tip of her Bato slashes will reach, because that will suddenly make someone second guess whether concentrating at that distance is a good idea.
Mhm.
Oh, add Merkava to that list as well of characters who will stop what they're doing in order to just concentrate full screen sometimes, because they are very willingly throwing away the Vorpal advantage in order to get free pokes at you.
Yeah, Crow does that a lot when we played. I would he would like concentrate, and I would dash in, and he would press 5C and like the right timing where, and I would just get hit by the 5C. Felt bad.
As an aside, there also we were talking about how if you aren't really sure what you're doing, you can concentrate or you can win Vorpal, etc., etc. This still depends on the opponent, what characters they're playing and whatnot. Not just in the sense that they might punish you for trying to do that, but in the sense that if you aren't sure what you're doing and you start concentrating and you see them start doing things that aren't related to Vorpal on the other side of the screen, you should probably stop them from doing it. For example, Seth setting Orb, Wagner equipping both her buffs, Merkava throwing babies on the floor. There are a lot of things where people just get time to set up whatever the heck they want if you're not doing anything.
Toss in Hilda putting out a gloom.
Yeah, Hilda putting out gloom, Carmine setting traps, etc.
We've got two comments or questions in the stream chat. How does your position to the corner affect Vorpal?
I actually don't know how significantly
It's
it
not that
affects.
significant anymore. I don't know if it actually changed, but definitely doesn't seem that significant.
It does still impact it, but I don't think it's. We need to consider as well that Uniel was where concentration rates existed, so
Yeah.
it's harder to gauge in that game too.
I believe, if I recall correctly, that if both players are playing the same character, I guess it doesn't matter in ST, and both hold down D at the start of the game, I think one player wins still.
Is this maybe tied to, so to speak, throw install?
Yeah, it's like one of the players has their concentrate start a frame earlier or something. It's really random.
Well, I guess to answer the question of how does your position to the corner affect gaining Vorpal? For those who are not aware, yes, your position on the screen, how close you are to the center of the screen, and how close you are to the corner of the, I guess, just the battlefield. I guess that does impact it. Whoever is closer to the middle of the screen has a slight benefit when concentrating for grid. Um, if you are concentrating and holding the button down to the point where it starts draining a meter, you also get a bonus compared to someone who is only tapping it.
Did you answer
Also,
the
if
Merc
you're in
question,
Veil
by the way?
Off, you get a huge amount.
Yeah,
Like it buffs your concentration and drain rates by an insane.
yeah. Merkava
Uh,
Vorpal.
What does Merc get from Vorpal? I think Merkava compared to every other character, actually, Merkava gets basically he gets the furthest range conversions in the game thanks to being able to do stretch grab CS.
It's basically his worms. They don't die.
In particular, if when Merkava leaves his 2-2-X 2-2 any button, and he puts when he rips his arm off and puts it on the ground, and the arm miraculously turns into a worm with sharp teeth. Normally, if he is not in Vorpal, you can hit the worm, or you can make Merkava block, and the worm will disappear. If he's in Vorpal, you have to hit the worm or hit Merkava. If he's blocking, the worms are still active, and they can and will bite you while you're attempting to pressure him.
Before I forget, I do want to mention something we forgot about CS, which is if you CS, it drains your grid, and while it's draining, it creates this little purplish bar at the bottom that empties out over time. While that bar is there, you cannot be guard crushed.
Mm.
By the
Can
way,
you wait? Oh, so wait, you can still use which version of guard thrust do you get?
you get the Vorpal version.
Oh, okay.
But
That's good
yeah,
to know.
It
while
counts
that
basically as being in Vorpal still.
Ah,
yeah while that bar is draining, you're still considered essentially in Vorpal, but you also get the slight benefit of anything that would grid crush you instead makes that bar drain, and then you stay in, so to speak, neutral grid state.
yeah.
So like
The place it shows up the most is actually when you see people CS at the end of a combo and then they do their like IW or whatever. That still has bonus damage on it.
yeah, and if you do Inferno with EX, you won't be grid crushed at the end of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mind you, CSing and then doing IWEX is an absolute waste of effort because it empties your bar instantly anyway.
Yep.
But you aren't grid crushed, so at the very least,
You wouldn't be
if you
grid
didn't,
crushed anyway.
why wouldn't you? Oh yes, because you being in Vorpal means
Yeah,
I
if
gotcha.
you're in
Although,
Vorpal, you don't get grid crushed by it, if I recall.
I think that there's still a slight benefit. Just when people, when they know that they'll kill at the end of a round, and they chain shift and then use meter, because you'll still get a little bit back.
No. IWEX won't because it drains the entire thing instantly. Remember, it quote unquote grid crushes you, so the bar goes away.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if there's anything else. More questions? No questions. Does everyone understand the importance of Vorpal? The value?
We can only hope. Hmm.
If
Yep.
no one has questions, I suggest you all go learn to be Indiana Jones with your Vorpal.
Yeah, I guess if there's no questions, we can end it here.
Nurses
say-
typing in the wrong place.
Yeah, we can give it maybe a minute.
think flying to London has still left me really messed up in terms of like sleep schedule, and that was like 2.5 weeks.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of far into the future.
So, question we have is, what do you guys think about overshielding?
It's bad.
Yeah, anything in excess amount is bad.
Spamming blue shields in neutral is bad, but it happens sometimes depending on who you're playing against or what character you're playing against. Spamming green shields, I mean, there are occasionally times where it is somewhat useful to do something like that, but you have to remember you're also pooping out all of your meter when you're doing it.
Yep. A lot
And
of
if
times,
someone is close enough, they can just grab you or something. So it's, there are trade-offs.
I gotta admit that sometimes I don't think about my meter when I green shield and I lose access to my 100-meter reversal because I'm thinking, okay, I'm a green shield and then buffer reversal after the shield. Then I get nothing. I get a C normal out instead and die. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, draining enough so that you can't use an EX. I gotcha. I think every once in a great while it might be worth doing just because it will throw off people. If you know that someone is actually dedicating to doing long block strings on occasion. But it's not a reliable thing at all. I think, yeah, occasionally you might want to do it to even represent the option, but not enough for me to want to talk about it any more than this.
Just a quick note: if you're about to lose the round and there's not a lot of time left, and there's like a Vorpal cycle, and you're not going to win, go ahead and spam all the green shields you want. If you can win that Vorpal cycle in CS and then get all the meter before you die, hey, have at it.
We have another question from Norse.
If you are in a spacing that's unfavorable for you in a matchup, and you want to move back, but that would cost you grid, which would you choose? Having to block and getting a chance for Vorpal, or backing up and losing grid to not get put into pressure?
Depends on the time of the Vorpal cycle. If it is early enough in the cycle, I will just move back. If I think that it will put me in a situation that is neutral and where the opponent cannot effectively punish me and I have a chance to concentrate, etc. If it is towards the end of the cycle, I'll probably just take the block because if I block, chances are I can still backdash or whatever afterward. And if I don't block and they don't do anything noticeable and I still win Vorpal, it's still favorable for me. So
I don't have anything to add to that. I agree with that.
Yeah, it sounds reasonable. I feel personally, I don't feel the urge to like walk away as much as I want to get in. So I think I would actually just block, dash block and
I like
shield.
walking away as certain characters because it is very funny.
Offensively, I
Notably,
like to do that. But like if
yeah.
I'm in neutral, then I'm more I want to smash more. I want to get in.
But see, when you're playing Ori, you're always on offense from anywhere on the screen.
Yeah, I guess I have to think about Ori players too.
Yeah, I think I think almost
You're
every
welcome,
character
Nars.
probably wants those same odds, or like wants to follow that same game plan. I think the only characters who might want to handle that differently are the ones who have really poor movement or defensive options. Like maybe Hilda will choose to like jump back or something, rather than have to continue dealing with pressure. But
Wold will never back up there.
yeah, well, where's Walt gonna go?
Characters like Merkava actually have a pretty decent chance if they're in a spot where they think it's unfavorable or whatever. I feel like if there's a character that is likely to backdash, it is probably Merkava.
Hmm.
I mean, he can contest from really far away as well.
Mhm.
His backdash is quite good. It moves really far, you know, and he can do random things over there, put babies down and fly. What?
Yeah, and then I guess as you move up in as you move up in quality of life on characters who have really good backdashes, you'll of course see that more often. Like the holy trinity of good backdashes: Hyde, Akatsuki, Gord.
Hey, Enkidu's close.
And Kito's very close.
Yeah.
But he's not holy, we'll say. But
He's
all those
fake.
characters, yeah, false prophet. You can find them. You'll find that you don't need to give them an excuse to backdash. They'll be doing it regardless.
Anything else?
What do you guys know?
Mm, I feel like that's probably a good spot to stop it. This time we aren't going an hour and 40 minutes. We're closer to like an hour and a half.
Mm,
Hey, we
nice.
trimmed off 15 minutes ish.
Nice. Nice. We did it.
Okay. Why don't we end on this last one then from Renoez? Would you use
Sure.
Vorpal to convert weird starters that do low damage but end in decent Oki?
This depends on the situation and on how bad my inputs are.
Weird starters that do low damage. Uh, actually, if they're healthy, if they have a lot of the weird starters, it's like, what is that?
Well, it's going to depend on your character, right? Let's
Because
say,
I have as Linne, I have starters that require chain shift or resources like meter, like the charge
Right.
BHN.
yeah,
I will choose not to always convert that because the damage is kind of bad. It also depends on the grid cycle. If I used my chain shift here, will that end up giving my opponent the next cycle? Then I will not. So
Yeah.
I will often be content with just when you hit someone, you still get like a grid. You get a grid
Yeah,
block.
you get one block, I think, for
Yeah.
hitting them.
So
they
I'll
lose one, you gain one.
yeah. So I will just be content with that and keep my chain shift most of the
I
time.
That's actually sort of the idea. When you see someone with Vorpal do Assault JA and not CS it,
yeah, that's just because they want that quick hit to uh, turn the scales on the grid war.
I mean, it turns the grid war, and it also scrambles the opponent on defense. Because people expect that CS, so they're like, okay, I got hit by Assault JA, okay, fine. And most of the time, after getting hit by Assault JA, players are not ready to deal with whatever the next like mix-up is. There's a brief moment where they're just like reeling from the hit itself still. Not like you're gonna hit them by landing and doing 5A. Of course, they're still holding back, but you know what
But that's I won't go into it. I guess I will say I find that that's actually really interesting in a way that isn't worth discussing right now. Only because that is most of those assault jump A's. Even on hit, you're still negative if you don't chain shift. So it really does go to show how you overwhelm your opponent to the point where they won't capitalize or be able to handle things that strictly going off the numbers shouldn't work, because most of those are like punishable or throw punishable, or at the very least you're minus enough that you should lose your turn if you hit with them. Yeah, so as far as the converting weird starters that do damage but end decent Oki, I think it's very contextual based on your character, because there are certainly instances that make perfect sense going off of what he already said, where it's I'll take the hit, I'll take the grid, and either sway the grid war in my cycle or continue to keep it in my favor. But then there are characters like a lot of my experience with Mika, I will land a hit and I will convert it because Mika's knockdowns are not of the best quality, and I'll land a hit and chain shift it just for the sake of getting the knockdown and maintaining her momentum as a character.
I think, the unfortunate thing is our answers to all these questions basically boil down to it depends on whether or not it will give me an advantage.
It's just a matter of what that advantage is.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what your character can do and what sort of knockdown you're looking at, the advantage is basically weighing the benefits of having Vorpal and being able to win the grid cycle over having strong Oki for the remainder of the current cycle sort of situation.
What is an advantage? Caps lock.
You cannot spam me. I am permanently offline.
Okay, is that it? The last question?
I think that's, yeah, we should probably end on that, and
Cool.
Oh, great question. What do you do if Gordo grabs your VO?
You wake up, change shift into Alt F4.
Well, with that being said, I think it's probably time that I Alt F4 out of this voice chat. So,
All right.
yeah,
Thanks
I think this
for
is
tuning in, and thanks for joining me, Tari and Vinegar.
Oh, here, let's address this. It was posted earlier. Will
Oh.
these be made MP3?
I make them into videos on YouTube. That's not the same thing, I guess. Wait,
yeah,
can
isn't
I?
it like MP4 or something? There
There
are
like a
programs that
function?
allow you to convert them, I believe.
Like if it's possible, then sure, I'll do that.
I guess we'll have to look into that.
Yeah,
But for
I
now,
don't know.
Yeah.
For now, I'm actually done. So thanks for having me. Thanks for listening, anyone who is doing so. And I guess we'll work on planning out podcast number 3. This one was slightly delayed, but that's okay. Next week is Climax at Night over in Atlanta, Georgia. If things work out, hopefully I'll be there, and we'll have something to talk about on the next one.
Yeah, I'll see you at Climax. Let's fight.
Wait, you're going to Climax too?
Yes.
Dang. Why is everyone going to Climax except for me? This sucks. Oh wait, no, Squish isn't going either. Otherwise, I would have shipped his jacket to him.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anyway, thanks for having us.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone, and